Parenting is the deliberate process of raising children from infancy all the way to adulthood. And this process involves you, the parent or the caregiver, supporting and promoting the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the social, and mental development of that child. So for the fact that you've been able to contribute your egg or you've been able to contribute your sperm and you've brought forth a child, that doesn't make you a parent. What makes you a parent is your ability to teach, to train, to influence, to coach, and raise that child to become a well-balanced adult who is functional and who can contribute to the larger society. That makes you a parent. Now, and one of the things that can make you an effective parent, so I tell parents that, see, everyone, every child you have, every person on earth basically, is a product of nature and nurture. Nature is the way God has created the person. Nurture is the way the person is being raised. Dr. Chika asked a question. She said that, so the people killing on the road, the people who are into corruption, the people doing all sorts of vices, do you want to say they were not raised by parents? Yes, they were raised by parents. But the question now is, were the parents effective? Were the parents deliberate in raising them to become functional and contributors to the larger society? That's where the issue is now. Now, one of the things that can make you an effective parent, one of the things that can make you an effective and purposeful parent and a smart parent is your parenting style. It's the parenting style you use. And the parenting style, we have quite a lot of parenting style. The first person that spoke, Mr. Samuel, he actually gave a list of different parenting styles, and he also gave some characteristics of these parenting styles, which I will also talk about, and I will go deeper into them. But one of the things that can make you an effective and a purposeful and smart parent is the parenting style you employ to raise your child. I want you to know that whatever parenting style you choose, whatever parenting strategy you use, has an effect on the development of your child. So science has shown, as a psychologist, these are things we do. Science has shown that most adult psychological or mental issues has its roots in the way the child was raised. And Dr. Mego mentioned something like that most issues adults have right from when they're older actually started from when they were younger, actually started from the way they were raised. So as parents, how are you raising your children? As parents, what method, what strategy are you using to raise your child or your children? So I have two questions I'm going to ask before I go into what parenting style is all about. So the first question I'm going to ask, when you were growing up, did you like the method your parents used in raising you? That's the first question. And I would like you to please put your comments before I go on. When you were growing up, did you like the method your parents used in raising you? That's the first question. Second question is, did you say you were going to raise your children differently? So let's see the comments. I'd like that definition again. Yes and no. No. Okay, someone said no. No, I didn't like the method. I didn't like almost everything about the method. Yes, but I fell apart. Okay, some more comments. Am I saying the comments well? I became pregnant. Okay, absolutely not. 50-50. As a child, I wasn't aware there was an option to like or not to like. I guess I accepted it and I got used to it. Yes, to an extent, I like the method my parents used. Great. So let me continue with my presentation. So as parents, So the first question I asked was, when growing up, did you like the method you used in raising your children? Did you like the method your parents used in raising you? Then the second question is, did you say you are going to raise your children differently? Most parents, while growing up, when they were children, they didn't like the way their parents raised them, especially children from my generation. Because the method our parents used is quite different from the method most parents are using now. And the third question I'm going to ask you now is, are you raising your children differently? So for those that said they were going to raise their children differently, are you raising your children differently now? For those that said they like the way their parents raised them, are you raising your children differently, or are you raising your child or your children the same way your parents raised you? So let me go to the comment section again. Yes, I believe there were always a better way. So I'm improving on how I was raised and not entirely different to some extent, but not as well as I could. Okay, let's see the other comment. I didn't like the method at all. At a point, I felt I was adopted. Great. As a child, I wasn't aware there was an option. Okay, I'm going back. Yes, I don't like the way, saying okay, I can't see that. Let me see. My mother, okay, I don't understand what person wrote. Okay, basically, so let me just go back to my discussion. Parenting style. So the first thing I want you to know that the way we were raised, unfortunately, that is the same way most parents are raising their children now. So you ask me why? Why are you saying so? Because there's something called the past parenting pattern. It just comes to you unconsciously. You just realize that the way your mom was shouting at you is the same way you're shouting at your children. The way your father did certain things is the same way you are doing those things in your own home. Why? Because of modeling. So the last two speakers spoke about modeling, that we are role models to our children. Our children are seeing what we're doing and all that. Modeling is the major reason why most parents are still raising their children the way they were raised. Now, for those that are not raising their children the way the parents raised them, it's because you made a conscious effort not to raise your child like that. Unconsciously, using the your subconscious and your unconscious mind, you are meant to raise your children the way your parents raised you because of modeling. But for those that are not raising their children the way their parents raised them, it's because they were conscious and they were deliberate not to raise their children the way their parents raised them. So what really is parenting style? What is parenting style? In simple English, parenting style is the method or the strategy you use in raising a child. Parenting style is the method or strategy used in raising a child. This strategy could be deliberate, could be conscious, and could be by design. Or this strategy could be by default, unconsciously, and you not being deliberate about it. And there are various factors that determines the way you are raising your child or your children now. And I've mentioned one. The first factor that influences your parenting style is your past parenting pattern, the way your parents raised you. That is the first factor that determines how you're going to raise your child, or that determines the parenting style you're using, or the strategy or the method you're using in raising your child. The second factor is your personality. The third factor is the personality of the child. So for parents that have choleric or strong-willed children, you would notice that you are a bit harsh, you're a bit strict with that child. True or false? Back to the comment section. True or false? For those that have children that are tough, that are stubborn, like the way we mentioned, we call them stubborn children, we call them strong-willed children. We tend to be more strict in the method we're using in raising them compared to their other siblings. True or false? True. Personality traits of your children matter. Yes, true. Okay, great. So let me go back. So the factors that actually influence the way you're raising your parenting style you're using now, the first one is your past parenting style, the way your parents raised you, your parents believe, your parents practice. That is one. The second factor that influences the way you're raising your child now is your personality. The third is the personality of the child. The fourth is the culture of your family. So there's a certain ways the Yorubas raise their children. There's a certain way the Igbos raise their children. There's a certain ways Asians and even Europeans raise their children. So these are factors that actually influence our parenting style. Then another factor that might influence your parenting style is the environment you're staying in. So let me ask another question. For someone that is living in Mushin, for those that know Mushin in Lagos, or for someone that is living in the Bronx in New York, would you allow your child to have like free access to be going out anyhow? Would you? So let's just imagine you're living in Mushin or you're living in the Bronx in New York. Would you allow your child to go out anyhow? Would you allow your child to take certain decisions without you trying to be a bit strict with that child? So let me see the comment section again. Absolutely not. No, I won't. No. Great. So I like the interaction with everyone here. Great. Thank you very much. So the factors that actually influence the way you're raising your child now is the way your parents raised you, your personality type or your personality trait, your temperament, the temperament of your child, the culture the culture of your family, it could be your religious background, could be your tribe or your culture, then the environment. So these are 5 factors that actually influence your parenting style. So like I said parenting style is the strategy, the method, the way parents use in raising their children. And I also said that this parenting style could be deliberate or conscious, could be by default or by design. And for those that are raising their children, for those that said they're raising their children the way the parents raised them, it could be due to the fact that you're unconsciously raising your children and you're not being deliberate about it. Great. Now, another thing we need to know about parenting style. So I'll give a brief history of how parenting style came about as a psychologist. So parenting style was actually developed by a psychologist in the early 60s. Her name is Diana, and she actually did like a test. She did a research on 100 children. She administered some questionnaires, and she also asked the parents certain questions. And she came up with initially three parenting styles. Then the fourth one was developed by another psychologist. Then apart from these 4 parenting styles, we have other parenting styles that are like fall out from these 4. Now, when Diane did her test, when she did her research, she identified 4 dimensions in the way parents raise their children. So she said some parents, so the 4 dimensions are the disciplinary strategy of the parent, the responsiveness of the parent in terms of how they nurture, how warm, how loving they are to their children. The third one is the communication style. How do they speak with their children? Is the communication style positive? Do they in the home, children are not allowed to talk? In some homes, children are not allowed to talk. Then the fourth one is the expectation of the parent and the control, how the parent tend to control these children. So these are the 4 dimensions, the 4 parameters that determines these different parenting styles. So the 3 parenting styles she came up with the authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, And the fourth parenting style was developed by McCoby and Martin, which is called the uninvolved and the neglective parenting style. So I'm going to give the characteristics of all these parenting styles, and I'll also talk about the effects of these parenting styles. I need you to know that as parents, that the way you're raising your child now determines the type of adult your child would be in the future. I love what Dr. Chika said. She said we should write the 2010 goal, like 2010 goals on how you want to raise your child. What type of adult do you want your child to be? What are the 10 things you need to do now to take you to that 20 years plan you have for your child or for your children? And one of the things you need to put in that 10 years plan is your parenting style. The way you're raising your child is very important. You need to know the right method to raise your child for that child to become that thing you've envisioned your child to become in future. So the first parenting style I'll be talking about is the authority. So one of the objectives of this training is for you to understand the different parenting styles, for you to identify the parenting style you're using presently and its effect on your child, and for you to either change or amend the method you're raising or the way you're raising your child now. So the first parenting style I'll talk about is the authoritarian, like the name implies, authoritarian. This parenting style, people call this parenting style as the disciplinarian parenting style. So parents who use this parenting style are known as disciplinarian. And if I may ask, most of us were actually raised, I'll give the characteristics of this parenting style, and I will now ask if most of us were raised with this parenting style. So what are the characteristics of the authoritarian parenting style? The first is that communication is always one way. This is the home where the father and the mother are the ones that have only the say. The children cannot contribute. So communication is always one way. Another characteristics about this parenting style is that love is not really shown. So the level of nurturing, the level of support given to children in this parenting style is very little. Then another thing you need to know about this parenting style is that the expectation of the parents are very high. So expectation high, love low. Communication zero. Communication is just one-sided on the side of the parent. In terms of discipline, in terms of correcting the child, the parents using this parenting style use punishment as a form of correcting the child. They do not use discipline. They use punishment. So it is the parenting style where the parents tend to inflict pain and harm on the child, saying that they are disciplined, saying that they are correcting the child. I'm going to make it short because of my time. So I'll just give brief, I'll just highlight the important points in each of all these parenting styles. Then at the end, I'll now talk about the effects, and we'll all deduce which one of this parenting style is the best. So the next parenting style I'll be talking about is the permissive parenting style. As the name implies, permissive. Here is like the opposite of the authoritarian. So the authoritarian is high in expectation, low in love. The disciplinary method is the corrective method or disciplinary method is punishment. The parents do not support at all. But for the permissive parenting style, the parent is high in terms of love. This is the style where the child is like the best friend to the parent. You know, the parent has no structure. There's no structure, no rules. Even if there are rules, there are very limited rules, and the parents are not consistent. Dr. Mego said something about being consistent. When you give your children rules, when you give your children routines, you have to be consistent. You have to ensure that they follow through. This permissive parent does not follow through. Communication is open. The child can express themselves anyhow. The parents too express themselves anyhow without any direction. Here, love is high, expectation is low. The parent basically does not really expect much from the child. All the parent is particular about is, oh, I need to love my child. The way my mom was so strict, the way my mom was always beating me, oh my goodness, this child must enjoy life. So these are the parents that tend to give their children a free way. Everything is at the child's disposal. The child is allowed to do anything and everything because the parent does not want to hurt the child, or the parent wants to be the child's best friend. This parenting style, I call it away from. The parent is running away from something. The parent is running away either from the fact that his or her parents were strict, his or her parents were too harsh, his or her parents did not provide for him or her, and the parent just wants to pour everything on the child, all the love, all the excesses and all that on the child. No discipline, nothing. Then the third parenting style I'll be talking about is unevolved or neglectful parenting. In this parenting method, the parents here, they've given the child freedom to do everything because they're not, like the name implies, they're not involved in the life of the child. There's no discipline style. There's no parent to discipline the child or to correct the child when the child has done something wrong. Communication is limited because the parent is not even available. You understand? This parenting style, there is no nurturing, no love, no expectation. The child is just there. So remember when I said being able to father a child, being able to bring forth a child doesn't make you a parent. It's when you are ready to do the job. Parenting is it's a process, it's a task. You have to be ready to do the job. That's what makes you a parent. So the uninvolved or neglectful parent is the one that is just, I will call the person either a sperm donor or an egg donor. Do you understand? The parent is just there. No discipline, no love, no expectation, no communication, nothing. The parent is just there. And most times we see parents like this, parents that are like this are either parents that are not involved in the life of the child, the day-to-day life of the child. Maybe parents that are separated and they are not there in the life of the child, or parents that are so focused on their own achievement the next level is I want to become this, I want to become the chairman, I want to become the president, I want to become this. So they are so focused on their own self and not on the child. When I'm done with stating all the different parenting styles, I'll talk about the effects of all these parenting styles on the mental and psychological development of your child. Then the next parenting style I'll be talking about, it's known as the authoritative parenting style. Now, for the authoritative parenting style, there's a reasonable and high level of nurturing. The parents set high and clear expectations. Children that have this type of parent tend to be self-disciplined and they have the ability to think by themselves. So for the authoritative parenting style, the disciplinary rules, your rules, you've stated your rules, you've explained the reason behind these rules to your children, compared to the first authoritarian, where the parents will state the rules and don't explain the reason behind the rules. So for the authoritative parenting style, the parents state the rules. They state the reason behind every rule. Communication is an open channel of communication. The parents can talk to the child can come to the parents and talk to the parents about everything going on in their lives. The parents communicate with the child based on the child's level of understanding. For this parenting style, the parent has a high level of love, nurturing, and support for the child. This parenting style, the parent will set goals, the parent will set expectations, but these goals and expectations are clearly stated, and the child has an input to whatever the parent is deciding in the home. So for this parenting style, the child has a stake. The parents have their own stake, the children have their own stake in the home. And another thing you need to know about this parenting style is that in terms of control, The parents, they know what is happening in the lives of the children. At every point in time, the parents know that, my child, this is what is happening in the next 5 years. These are things that we are meant to achieve. The parent has discussed with the child, okay, so the next 5 years, what are your goals for the next 5 years? What are the things you want to achieve? They are in sync. The parents and the child are in sync. They all know what they want to talk about. So let me give an example. So for my oldest son, when he was going into the university, there was a particular school I wanted him to go to, but there was a particular school he wanted to go to. So I told him, fine, write out the pros and cons of this school you want to go to. Tell us why you don't want to go to this other school. And he came up and he told us this is the reason why he wants to go to this school, and these are the reasons why he do not want to go to the other school. And myself and my husband, we discussed it, and we said, okay, fine, we would send you to this other school. This other school that you want to go to is more expensive than the other school, but what are you going to give to us if we're going to spend so much? You understand? So we discussed it. What are you going to give to us? And he said, I will ensure that I come out with a first class. Fine, great, no problem. You picked the school and you said you're going to give us this. So it's a give and take thing. You know, parenting is not all about you. It's about the parent, but with you having at the back of your mind that you are raising leaders, you are raising great people. You know, every child God has given to us is for a reason and for a purpose. If you, the parent, do not know the reason why God has given you that child, you end up raising the child, and the child ends up becoming not useful to himself, ends up becoming not useful to the society. And if you remember, when I stated the definition of parenting, I said that parenting is the deliberate process of raising a child that will be well balanced, and the child will be useful to himself, functional, and be a contributor to the society. So as a parent, I've given you the 4 major parenting styles. Question now, out of all these 4 parenting styles I've listed, which one of them are you practicing? So that's my question. Which one of them are you practicing in your home before I tell you the effects of the different parenting styles? So I'm waiting. So I've listed 4 parenting styles. I've stated the authoritarian, I've stated the neglectful or uninvolved, the permissive, and finally, I've stated the authoritative. So somebody said the 4th one, great. Somebody said a mixture of all, great. Let's go. Authoritative. Somebody said surprisingly authoritative. Somebody said default disciplinarian and moving to authoritative, great. Somebody said combine authoritarian plus authoritative. Okay. Permissive and authoritative, great. I love this. Let's the comments keep coming up. Great. So we can see that from these different parenting styles. So let me ask another question. For those that are, whatever parenting style you're using, were you deliberate or were you conscious? Were you consciously raising your child with that parenting style you're using now? That's my next question. You've stated the parenting style you're using. Are you presently consciously raising your child using that parenting style, or it's just by default? Hello?
So we have 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm rounding up now. No, I wasn't deliberate until recently, moving from authoritarian to the authoritative, great. 30% conscious. That's why I said surprisingly great. So now I'll talk about the effect of these parenting style. You know, I said something that when I started, I said that science has proven that most adults' mental and psychological issues is due to the way they were raised. So I need you to know that whatever method, whatever style you're using to raise your child now will have an effect, either positive or negative, in the future. I need you to know that. So let me start with the authoritarian. The authoritarian, what are the effects? What are the associated outcomes of raising a child using the authoritarian parenting style. First thing you need to know, because you are strict, because you do not allow the child to have a say in your home, that child is going to have a low self-esteem. Just know it. The child is going to have a low self-esteem. The child will have poor social skills. Another thing you need to know is that in terms of mental illness, in terms of mental health disorder, the child is prone to have that. Another positive side of this, of raising your child like this, is that the child might be, for children that are choleric, they might end up being a go-getter. All they know is how to go out there and get whatever they want to get, because their parents have raised them with high expectations and they want to get the best. But for children that are not choleric, for children that have either melancholy or that, for children that do not have a strong spirit, this parenting style might break that child. Even for that child that we said that might end up becoming a high flyer and all that, the child might start using drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism. So parents should know that the associated outcome for the authoritarian parenting style is the child would have a low self-esteem, the child might have poor social skills, the child might become a high flyer, but coping using drugs and alcohol. Now I'm rushing now. Now for the permissive parenting style. That's the parenting style where you just allow the child to do everything. The child is your paddy, your child is your bestie. You don't punish you don't discipline the child, you don't do anything to the child. The child ends up becoming impulsive because you've not raised the child with structure, you've not raised the child with rules. The child ends up having impulsive behavior. Yesterday I posted something on Instagram. I said, what causes children, why do we have some narcissistic behavior in some children? It's because of this parenting style, permissive parenting style. The child becomes egocentrical, the child has poor social skills. All the child is thinking about is himself, me, I, and me. I don't know. The child will have problems in terms of his relationship because all the child is thinking about is just himself or herself. So that's the associated outcome of the permissive parenting style. The another one thing you need to know is that for the neglectful parenting style, so there's this thing in psychology that is called the adverse childhood experiences. And for children that have gone through there are three categories of adverse childhood experiences. That's children that have gone through neglect, children that have gone through abuse, and children that were raised in dysfunctional homes. These children, they tend to have mental health issues. And it's so unfortunate that for parents that are raising their children by not being involved in the life of the child, one thing you need to know is that the child would have impulsive behavior because the child was raised without rules. The child will become cold because the child was raised without love. The child will tend to use drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism because there was no one there to show the child love. The child has suicidal tendency. That's one thing you need to know. The child will have suicidal tendency. And as parents, please, I need us to, I said my area of specialty is in the mental and emotional development of adolescents. As parents, we need to watch out for teenagers, especially teenagers that get themselves locked up in the room, always on their devices. Suicidal tendency is high. So as parents, please be involved in the lives of your teenagers. Very important. Then finally, I want to talk about the associated outcome of raising your child using the authoritative parenting style. Now, apart from these 4 parenting styles, there are actually other parenting styles that were gotten from these 4 parenting styles. If I still have time, I'll just talk about those ones. But I want to talk about the associated outcome or the effect of raising your child using the authoritative parenting style. And like I said, the authoritative parenting style is one where you're loving, you've set rules and expectations for your children, and your children understand the reason for these rules and expectations. You are supportive, and you value the independence of your child. Most children that are raised using this parenting style end up becoming high flyers, high performance. They have a good they have a good sense of self-esteem. They have better social skills. They are not prone to mental health disorder, and they end up not getting themselves involved in any delinquency. So as parents, out of all this parenting style, which is the best? Out of all these 4 parenting style, which is the best? So when you say, is there any? Yes, the authoritative. Is there any style without a negative mental and emotional effect on our children? Yes, there is, the authoritative. Why? Because you are there. You are involved in the child's life. You are present. You set rules, and you are enforcing the rules. And apart from that, you are also flexible. So for the 4th one, there are rules, but these rules are not cast in stone. But for the first one I spoke about, the authoritarian, there are rules, but the rules are cast in stone. Once the mommy says this is the way it is, that is the way it is. Nobody is able to talk. Nobody is able to, the communication is just one-sided. Authoritative. Great. Now, one thing about the authoritative parenting style that parents need to know is that it requires your support. It requires your involvement. It requires your dedication and you being deliberate in raising this child. I need you to know that. It requires your dedication. It requires your support. It requires your involvement. Parents who use this style are parents who are able to influence their children and not control their children. The thing about controlling your children is that when you can only control them to a certain level. The moment that child leaves home, by the time the child goes into university, that's it. So you have no control over that child again. You have no control over that child again. But for parents that use the authoritative parenting style, you have a great influence over the life of that child. In terms of his spiritual, in terms of his physical, his emotional, his mental and social development, you have a great influence over that child. So for parents who have identified their parenting style and want to move from being an authoritarian, a permissive, or a neglectful parent, and you want to become a smart and authoritative parent, I have this program. It's called a Smart Parenting Coaching Program, where we guide parents, where we assist them, where we give them tools and plan. We help them create a plan on how to move from that parenting style to this parenting style we've spoken about. So, Chioma, is my time up?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Toyin.
Okay.
Thank you for through the parenting style. And I'm a big fan of this study, which you classify this 4 parenting styles. And I do agree that authoritative is the best. But to be honest, I do think that sometimes it is okay to be authoritative, depending on the child's age and character. And sometimes it's not too bad to be permissive. The one that is totally bad all the time is the negligent parent.
But do you know that
definitely the best authoritative.
But do you know that the authoritative parenting style really has a combination of all these other parenting style?
It actually does. Then again, you are right.
It has traits of the so when Mr. Samuel was talking, he spoke about a balanced parenting style. A balanced parenting style is the one where you set rules, where you love your child, where you allow the child to do certain things by himself. That's, you're trying to build the independence in the child. Then what was it? I can't remember. I think he sets 4 things and he put the authoritative in between. He put the balance in between.
Someone is asking. Thanks so much, Toyin. Thank you. Great session has been so intense. Someone is asking, like, does it not depend on the age of the child, and does it not depend on the child's personality. I know
Personality.
you mentioned phlegmatic child, sanguine child, blah blah blah. That can you just answer that? So it's going
Okay.
to depend on their age and on their personality,
Okay.
or is
So
it generally?
so there's this thing we do in our coaching program. So we tell parents, see, your parenting style is this, but your parenting practice, the way you carry out the rules and the regulation, is dependent on your child's personality. You know, when I started, I said there are certain factors that influences the way you raise your child. I said the way you were raised, I said your personality, I said the child's personality. So for you to know how to use the authoritative parenting style effectively, you have to put all these factors into perspective. And what are the factors? Your personality type, because if you're a choleric person, you would always want to, you always want to be at the forefront. You want to give orders. You want things to be done your way. So once you understand that that is your personality style, what do? You step down. So like Sonny said here, no one cap fits all. Great, but your personality type, the child's personality type, determines how you would use the. I said the authoritative is the most effective, but it now depends on how you're going to use it. The authoritative style talks about your love, about you loving the child, you setting expectations for the child, you correcting the child using discipline, not punishment. And also talks about so is there another question?
No, no, no. As what you're saying, in effect, is that the authoritative has aspects of authoritarian and permissive.
But
Yes.
but it now depends on how, so because it's flexible.
Yes.
You're not strict that this is the way it should go. But you based on, so when I started, I said every child is unique, every child is different. But as a parent, you need to be able to understand who your child is, to know how you're going to use the authoritative parenting style to raise that child. The most important aspect in all this parenting style is the way you nurture and support the child. If you are giving rules without supporting the child, then it's not authoritative. If your support is very high and you're not giving rules, you're not being authoritative.
Gotcha. And I think, on a final note, I think Dogman's comment kind of sums up what you're trying to say. I am choleric. So my authoritative means I sometimes dominate my child, even with love. So I have to remember to step down. Thank you. Focusing on authoritative. I think you apply it in different levels based on
Your
the
child's
child's
personality.
and of
Yeah.
course your own. Thank you.
Yes.
So I think that is the summary of everything.
Yes.
And Toyin, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for this insightful session. Thank you for breaking it down for us. Because honestly, these things help us more conscious in the way we are as parents and the way our children too will respond to our parenting. Okay? Yes, parenting is a full-time job. It comes with a lot of responsibility, and we do need to take it seriously. So it's been a great session. I'm going to allow Toyin go, unless anyone has a question. If not, I need to go to the next panelist. Any questions? All right. Thank you so much. Everybody is appreciative of this session. And like I said, all the panelists, I took time to talk. These are people who are great resource people. She's written, she has like 3 amazing books, or 2. Is it 2 or 3? So I think it's 3 now.
I have 3.
Her books are yeah. So her books have been very useful. And Toyin, just to give you a backstory, I met Toyin through her children, I believe, who are my children's friends, and at one point or the other, they come to my house, they slept over here, and you see children, they're not perfect, but they are well-raised children. And the way you are as a child impacts a lot on how you are as an adult. If you see an adult who was poorly raised, you can tell. If you see an adult who had no boundaries, no rules, no regulations, you can tell. If you see a child that was not raised with love or affection, you can tell. So all those things are very important in the making of a man. And like somebody said once, there's this poem, the father of the man is the child.
It's a child, yeah.
The way the man is now is a reflection of what he got as a child. So we need to be very intentional. So I will connect to all these beautiful people after all the sessions. Thank you so much, Toyin. God bless you. And okay, one question before you go. Can both parents have two different styles? Yes, they can, definitely.
So by
So they have,
default,
yes,
we all have different styles by
definitely.
default, but consciously making that conscious and deliberate um, effort, you can all start using the authoritative parenting style. But by default, we all have different parenting style based on the factors I stated earlier. The way you were raised. If you were raised in a home where all your parents knew to do was shout, 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 of course you start shouting. If you were raised in a home where your parents are loving, kissing and all that, you will become like that. So it depends on the home the parent was raised in. Parents have different parenting style, but coming together to become a smart and purposeful parent, you now have a plan. This is the way we want to raise our children, because this is where we want our children to be in the next 10 or 20 years.
Yes, yes, I agree. And that's why later on, Kristen is going to talk to us about creating a parenting plan because she had that experience where her mother came from two totally different backgrounds, had two totally different parenting styles, and they came together, intentionally to create a style. So that, you learn more about that from Kristen. Toyin, God bless you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me.
I enjoyed listening in.
Bye,
And right away, we're
everyone.
going to go to Chioma, the tea. Bye, everyone. Bye. I said bye, everyone. Bye, Toyin. I'm going to Chioma.